Hello and welcome to Elena Meets the Author. This podcast explores how authors create a world that we can escape into. Join me as we demystify the magic that keeps us turning the page. Today's interview is with New York author Annabel Monaghan, whose novel Summer Romance is delightful, funny, wise, a read for you to throw in your beach bag. I interviewed Annabel 2 years ago about Nora Goes Off Script and was charmed by this self-deprecating, observant author whose ability to create lovable, believable characters is truly impressive. Plus, she's really funny. It's not an understatement to say that Annabel loves love stories. Her favorite movies end with a prom. She keeps all her old love letters. And while she's tried to write thrillers and murders, they always end up as love stories. It's just the way she's built. But she's not all love and kisses. Annabel absolutely hates dog parks, just like the narrator in Summer Romance. I hope you enjoyed the show. So, hi, Annabel. I am very excited. Hi. I know, long time no see. I'm very excited to be talking to you today about your latest book, which came out just a few weeks ago, Summer Romance. Summer Romance is about a woman named Allie Morris who lives in a suburb outside of Manhattan. She's a professional organizer, but her life is a mess. Her mother died 2 years ago. Her husband left her a year ago. Her pantry is a sight to behold. She hasn't worn hard pants, i.e. pants with a zipper, and she can't remember how long. She has 3 kids who she's trying to hold it together for. She's stuck. Then one day, Allie takes off her wedding ring. She puts on overalls, which kind of count as hard pants, and she goes to the dog park with her dog Ferris. She meets a cute guy named Ethan, and as the title of your book suggests, things start looking up for Allie. I love this book, just like I love the other book I interviewed you about, Nora Goes Off Script, your first of 3 best-selling novels that you've written in the last 3 years. And I'm happy to hear you're working on a 4th one for next summer. You are clearly on a roll. Your books are funny, smart, philosophical without being too heavy, feel good without ever being stupid. First question. I love romantic comedies, intelligent romantic comedies, but they do get a hard time, like they're not proper literature. Why do you think that is? Do you think it has something to do with how they look like they're easy to write, but are anything but?
Certainly, I think it is. And I'm so happy to be here talking to you. I think they do. They're easy to read, so they probably seem like they're easy to write. But I don't know why something to have value has to be hard to read to begin with. I read for pleasure. I read for escape. I don't read to make my life harder than it already is. So I think other people do. I seek out books that are going to transport me someplace. But I do think just because they sort of flow in an easy way and we're not trying to trick you into learning new words, I think people kind of give these books a hard time. But I certainly think there's value in them.
They're such great escapes. They put me in such a good mood. And I always know that going to bed, I'm going to have something great to read. You know, I know it's going to put me in a good mood as I fall asleep.
There's value to that, right? I mean,
what's
wrong with going to sleep with a smile on your face?
Yes. Exactly. Or walking in the park with the earbuds with a smile on my face. So this novel, I think, has got to be made into a movie. Your descriptions of Ethan really made me want to meet him. He's the perfect guy who not only really sees Allie, but is crazy about her. And he's also gorgeous without an ounce of vanity. And he's always bringing her snacks and glasses of wine. If you could choose any actor to play both Allie and Ethan, who would they be?
I really do. I think maybe I was hungry while I was writing this book. I really do like how he would show up with the chocolate pretzels and a little bit of Sancerre. I mean, it's not really that hard to please a woman.
He does.
Any actor for Allie, I would say Jennifer Lawrence. She is always my first choice. And I would actually have her play any of my heroines in any of my books. I think she can do anything. But I would love to see that. And Ethan, I have a harder time with because I sort of see him as a complete person, but I sort of think of him as a younger Sean Penn. but Sean Penn is not younger. So we
Oh,
couldn't get him to do it.
no.
So I don't know who that actor is. Do you
Interesting.
have any ideas?
Interesting. Well, to me, Sean Penn he's a great actor. I guess he could be charming. He also has a slightly mean streak. He can sort of get into fights.
Yes.
He can be, to me, he seems a little unbalanced, whereas Ethan is so steady.
Yeah, but I think in a movie, he could be just the right amount balanced with the snacks and the wine.
He could.
Yes.
He could. And he's got the naughty boy. Yeah, you're right. Sean Penn would be good. In your notes at the end of the book, you talk about how your mother's death in 2009, about how after your mother's death in 2009, a nun who knew your mother emailed your sister to say she's as close as your breath. What do you think she meant by that?
I love it so much. I think about that sentence all the time. And I think what it means is that if somebody loves you a lot and loves you your whole life and, like your parents, and they infuse you with this love, it becomes a part of you. And so once they're gone, you don't feel so much that they're gone because they're inside of you and they're also outside of you, sort of at like your breath. Like every time I breathe in and out, there's something of my mother that is coming in and out of me. And I just think it's such a comforting thought. And Allie in this book, she's grieving the loss of her mother and she talks to her mother out loud in the car all the time, which is a thing that I do all the time. I will constantly, a couple times a week, I get in the car and I say, Mom, can you believe what just happened? Or what am I going to do? And it's not like I hear a response from her. I'm not hearing dead people, but I know in my head and in my memory and in my heart what she would say to comfort me in a certain situation. So it's still there. I think when somebody's loved you really, really well, I don't think they leave you.
Right. That's a good, and you know them so well, so you know what they would say. Are other people ever in the car when you are talking to your mother?
Never. No. They would.
Good to know.
Can you imagine? My husband, my children. What are you doing? No. I keep that to myself.
Okay. I read that this is your most personal novel yet. Can you expand on how this book has a lot of parallels to your own life? You talked about your mother, and do you hate dog parks?
So I really can't express how much I hate dog parks. The meet cute in this book, I think it's on the back of the book, so it's not a spoiler. But she goes to the dog park and her little dog runs over to this very attractive man, lifts his leg and pees on him and chooses him for Allie in that way. And the first time that I ever took my dog to the dog park was also the last time I ever took my dog to the dog park. But he just ran over to this lady, just this perfectly nice lady, lifted up his leg and peed on her flip-flop. No joke.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was on her actual skin, the look on her face, and I just apologized and backed away and frankly never went back to the dog park again. So certainly that's part of my life.
So funny.
But the grieving of my mother is definitely in this book. But also this idea that I think about all the time, I put into this book, which is what is the right amount of involvement to have in your children's lives? What is the right amount to step in? Allie's mother steps in when her husband is absent to sort of make everything okay. And her over-helping in her marriage sort of makes Allie lose her voice and sort of keeps her from ever really learning how to be married. And I think this is a thing that we do as parents, as our children get older. We don't let them learn how to live because we are just trying to prevent them from feeling any kind of pain. So this is something I think about a lot. It's something that I've written about a lot. And all of that made it into the book and sort of made it personal to me.
I think that's so true. And I think it's a generational thing because my parents didn't really at all. You couldn't really helicopter your parents when I was young because we didn't have mobile phones.
Yeah.
I would just, disappear and I'd have to be back by dinner when I was like a teenager. And nowadays you really can, actually my daughter knows where I am because she's got me on Find My Friends. So she knows when I say I'm going to meet her if I'm a little slow. I was stopping to buy her flowers and she knew because she could see me. I'm like, can you see which side of the bed I'm on? So we can monitor each other so closely.
But what happened to us that we decided we needed to do that? Because, I was raised on just a really heavy dose of negligence and I survived and it was fine. And did the world change
Me too.
to make us so afraid that our children would ever have a bad day? I don't know what happened.
I think it's kind of the media because you suddenly, all the bad things that were always happening, now you read about them.
Yes.
You didn't know they were all happening.
Yes.
So then it makes you paranoid, but that freedom is really important. But it's a very good thing to be
There's
writing
this
about.
idea that I think all of us would love to do everything we can to keep our children from ever suffering. But that is not really best practices because they're going to suffer. And if they haven't ever suffered along the way, their first step out it's a doozy. So I don't know. I just think about this. My kids are all adults now too. And I don't know, like, how often do I call? How much do I remind them? I don't know. It's tricky. It's a tricky dance.
It is. It's a very good way of putting it because I have 3 adult children as well. What does your ideal writing day look like? Do you drink a lot of coffee, walk a dog, light some candles, anything to help you find your mojo?
I do all of those things. My ideal writing day starts at 5:00. So if I wake up in the morning at 5:00, I am not fully awake when I start writing. And I find that that's my most creative time. It's before my thinking brain has really kicked in. And my thinking brain likes to remind me that I don't know what I'm doing. This is probably not a good idea. And that's my best writing time. I sit with my dog. I light a candle. I have a cup of coffee. And then the people wake up and then I have to walk the dog and all the things happen. And then I have to walk myself. And then I'm back in a writing chair by 10:00. And then I'll write for, 3 more hours. That's a really good writing day. A writing day is not 8 hours long. It's very difficult to write for 8 hours. But
it's too intense.
It's just too intense and you wear out. You need a break to kind of refresh and to have new ideas. I mean, I don't have 8 hours worth of material. It won't all come. So a 5-hour writing day is a great day.
Okay. It's good to know. So people know that they don't need to do 8 hours. Even just putting in an intense morning is good.
2 hours of writing a day is a lot of writing. And 2 hours of writing a day will keep you mentally in your novel well enough that you're actually writing the rest of the day while you're doing all the other things that you're doing. Because it's there. The problem is if you take a week off or even 3 days off. If I take 3 days off from the novel that I'm writing right now, I have to go back to the beginning and read the whole thing again because it's too foreign to me and I don't have the sense of it, the feel of it yet. So
yeah. So when you're on a book tour now,
I just got home
writing
yesterday.
on the book tour?
Yep.
Okay, but do you write? In terms of you've got to keep writing pretty much every day to stay in the feel of your book. So you write every day, even when you're touring. Do you make time?
Well, so this tour, I woke up every single morning and went to an airport. And I flew somewhere and then I arrived somewhere and I frankly didn't even know where in the middle of the day. And then I had a couple of hours to regroup before I had an event at night. So I thought I was going to write on book tour and I did not. I didn't have the headspace. But what I did is I'm working right now with a 14-page editorial letter from my editor on my new book. And I printed it out and I read it over. It's like staying in shape so that I'm still thinking about it, so that something inside of me is still moving this book forward, even though I'm not typing. Now that I'm home, I got to get back to work.
Okay. Interesting. Not only do you write great metaphors, like when Ethan is surprised and not in a good way to see Allie, you describe his look as if bats started flying out of your toilet, which is just perfect. We've got the look. But you also have much broader metaphors about life, how the charms on Allie's bracelet stop once her mother dies, as if there are no more milestones to be had, how skateboarding is a lot more than it seems, and how owning a dog is a bit like a summer romance. They're both worth the guaranteed heartbreak. Do you think of these bigger messages before you start writing?
No, I actually do not. There's a magic moment that happens when you're writing a novel where things start to come together. Like there was this moment when I realized that a summer romance and having a dog is basically the same thing. And I didn't realize it until I had written it. And I thought, that's actually the same thing. One's going to end at Labor Day, one's going to die. And the value of it is really the same thing. It's just the joy that you get while it's happening. But no, I never think of a metaphor until I'm sitting there and I'm typing and it sort of comes up.
In your flow.
In the flow.
You have two main older women characters in your book, Allie's dead mother and Allie's 94-year-old neighbor, Phyllis. How would you compare these two women? And can you talk about the importance of intergenerational friendships?
I love, in my life, I love my intergenerational friendships, both up and down. I think they give me so much context. And Allie has this neighbor who's 94 years old, who she's known forever, but she got more close to, it seems, after her mother passed away. And Allie's mother, as I said, was overly involved in everything in her life. And Phyllis, her neighbor, has sort of the opposite attitude about things. She says, pull the weeds and let God do the rest. She's very hands-off about everything. Phyllis is actually kind of how my mom was. And I really appreciated I just appreciated Phyllis's outlook on everything. So they were there sort of as a contrast to each other and hopefully to have Allie, change throughout the novel. But I just think those relationships we all, in wherever we are in our lives, we get so full in our heads about where we are and what we're doing and what our particular circumstances are. And older friends give us context for, where we're going and how maybe some of that isn't so important. And our younger friends give us context for where we've been. I just think it's really important. And what I've loved about this particular book tour is how many mothers and daughters are showing up to my events together.
Wow.
And young girls, 20-year-old girls telling me that they got my book from their grandmother or that they gave the book to their grandmother and that they're all reading it together. There's just been a real feel for the generations with this book, and it delights me like I can't even tell you.
Well, you touch on 3 generations.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you don't have any daughters, but you really captured, is it Greer? Yeah, what Greer is going through.
Yeah.
How did you know what it's like for a 7th grade girl?
I was doing an event this week and I asked all the crowd of 100 people, I said, who here knows what that is to be a 7th grade girl and get ditched? And every single one of them raised their hands. Every single person in the audience. It is the most universal feeling. So I don't have a daughter, but I was in the 7th grade and I remember.
Right.
It is like, it's anthropological, I think. It's like when the cheetahs are going in for a kill and they surround the prey. You pick out the weaker girl and you pounce and then everybody turns on you.
Yeah.
It's bananas. So I wrote what I remembered.
Yeah. No, it was very good. You really do. You touch each generation. So I can see it's a very good grandmother, daughter book. Changing tack here. Your sex scenes hit just the right note. They're suggestive and sexy without anything too embarrassing. No 50 Shades of Grey. Do you have any tips on writing about sex? And have your sons read your books?
So, I think that might be part of why mothers and daughters are reading this book together, because it's not embarrassing. When I wrote Nora Goes Off Script, I needed to write a sex scene and I just panicked. I didn't know how to approach that. And I actually Googled it and talked to a bunch of people. And what I realized is that there's 2 kinds of sex scenes and you just have to make a decision. One is a scene where there are body parts and you're seeing where the body parts are going, and that's spicier. And then the other kind is where the people are together and you know how it feels that they're together emotionally, and you can kind of feel it, but you're not seeing any body parts. That's where I'm comfortable. And I think that people who are writing sex scenes, you just have to realize what you're comfortable with. What is it that you want to turn out? And I think that the sexiest thing is what comes before the sex scene. It's the waiting for the kiss. That's where all the feelings come from anyways. It's not the actual act in the book. So that's how I approach it. My kids all read Nora Goes Off Script. Only one of my kids read Same Time Next Summer or Summer Romance or the book I'm writing right now. It's the same kid. And he does not feel uncomfortable about it.
That's good. Yeah, because it's not too gooey. Yeah, I mean, gooey. It's perfectly PG.
Yeah.
But yet it is definitely sexy because you're right. As you say, it's the buildup, and you make her wait.
Yes. Yes.
It takes some time.
Yeah, it takes some time. And my editor always says, especially in this book, she said, I want to be dying for that kiss. Make us just dying for it. And that takes a lot of revision to get that right. So, and also, if you're not going to be explicit with sex, you do have to work a little harder to work on the buildup and, make it pay off in another way.
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like you have a great editor.
I have actually, I think she's the greatest editor. There must be written down somewhere who is the greatest editor. It is my editor. She is so smart. I feel like it's almost cheating that I get to talk to her about my books while I'm writing them.
And how did you find her to begin with?
So my agent sent my book out on submission to a bunch of editors, and there was some interest, and then she was the one who we ended up with. So
okay. So she edited Nora too. All
three. And 3 more that are coming.
Oh, you're in a 6-book contract?
Yeah, well, I'm finishing a 2-book contract with the book I'm writing right now, and I've just signed another 2-book contract. So I'm contracted through 2027.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really good. I also liked how Ethan dealt with ex-husband Pete's put-downs. He deflected rather than replied aggressively. Were those scenes fun to write?
So much fun. I really like writing a horrible guy. And the thing about Pete, her ex-husband, is he's not physically abusive, or he's not doing anything overt. He just talks to her in a way that can literally wear you down after time. It's just belittling and demeaning and dismissive in a way that just makes you want to punch him in the face so hard. So in the scenes where Ethan is just quietly putting him in his place, it was very satisfying writing. I loved writing all of those scenes.
Yeah, I loved reading it. And of course, I loved how Mr. and Mrs. Hogan found any excuse to dress up in a costume. They accuse their adult son of never growing up, when in fact, they're pretty childlike themselves.
Yeah.
You have such a good imagination for colorful, believable characters. Do you daydream a lot to come up with these characters?
I do daydream a lot. I don't know how much normal people daydream, but I do daydream a lot. And I like a colorful character. I also like a small town. There's always, in a small town, there's the people who do this and the people who do this. I liked writing them as the eccentric couple that dresses up overly for every occasion in costumes. Yeah, I do daydream. I don't really even know where that came from.
It's just great. And there's so much material that comes off of that. That's good. What lessons do you hope readers take away from Summer Romance?
I never want to write a book where there's a moral, but I hope that if people are stuck, I've been stuck in my life. I don't know if you've ever been stuck.
Definitely.
the answer is not, going to law school. The answer is doing one small thing to get you a tiny bit less stuck, and then another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing. And part of that, I think, is what Allie does in unburdening herself of all of her stuff. And a lot of that is physical stuff. Her house is a disaster, but some of it is just the expectations that she feels like people have on her, the expectations of society. She really moves through a lot of that stuff, but it can all be done little by little. And, the overwhelm is the enemy.
It's almost like she does physical gestures to help her get unstuck.
Yes.
Like taking off her ring and organizing.
Yep.
Little by bit by bit, her own house.
Putting on a pair of hard pants.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. Are there some constants that we can always expect from an Annabel Monaghan novel?
Yes. I will always write a love story. I have tried to write a murder. I've tried to write a thriller, and they've been disasters, but they've crumbled because I've turned them into a love story immediately. Like I can't stay in the darkness for very long when I'm writing. So it'll always be a love story. There will always be a heroine who starts out in a certain situation and ends up just being more herself. And it will be not because of the relationship, but she'll never have a man solve her problems. Those are the kind of novels that drive me crazy, where everything's terrible, but then the guy calls and everything's fine. I don't know if you know this, but that's not how it works in real life.
No.
So she will always come back to her truer self by the end. For me, that's really satisfying. And I kind of think that's the journey we're all on, is just to get back to ourselves and away from all the nonsense that we learned for, 50 years.
Yeah. To who we once were. Yeah. Can you always promise us a happy ending?
Oh, of course. That goes without saying.
Thank God.
Yes, I would never. And I'll never kill a dog. People have been asking me that. Oh, does a dog die? I'm like, I would never.
It's very reassuring. There's so many books being published this summer especially. It can be daunting to wannabe authors. What advice would you give those aspiring novelists?
Oh, I've been asked this question so many times and I have answers for it, but I've recently just realized what the true answer is. And this is my best advice. The true answer is you have to write the book that you're going to want to write. You're going to write the book that you want to read. So if you think that you're going to write the next Lessons in Chemistry because that was really successful, by the time you write it, nobody's going to want to read that anymore. So don't follow what's selling or what agents are looking for. You have to write the book that really only you can write, because you're going to have to read that book 100 times while you're writing it. It should be something that is personal to you and that you care about.
That's great. Good. And everybody should be able to do that. That takes a lot of pressure off because you're just going inside yourself.
Yes.
You're not trying to
we're
imitate
also
anybody.
Different, and we could all write the same story in a totally different way. So you just got to write the story in the way you can write it, because that's going to be so different than the way I can do it.
Right. And lastly, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
Oh my goodness. Just relax a little, for God's sakes. Everything's going to be fine. You don't have to do all these horrible things to make yourself a valuable person on this earth. When I was 21, I was just chasing the idea of deserving the space on the earth. I worked so hard, and, I'm glad I worked hard, but, everything's going to be okay. Relax.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. In the words of the Morris family, I'd like to wish you a happy champagne. What is it? A happy champagne summer.
Have a champagne summer.
Yes.
So far, so good with the champagne summer over here. It's been great.
Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I did. You can find out more about me and the authors I've interviewed via my Instagram, website, or episode description. You can also email me questions that you'd like me to ask an author or suggest books to read. See you next time.